to do, sisters and brothers, we're actually going to unmute everybody's line, okay? Unless you have some background noise, we'll leave you on mute. So hopefully you're in a place where you can hear us clearly and we can hear you clearly, even with your line unmuted. If you may happen to be in an area with some background noise, simply push mute on your cell phone, on your phone, so that we can keep your line free. And if you do have a question or a comment while we discuss the 10-point appeal and plan, you just get in a position, unmute your phone, and you can ask your question. But we're going to go ahead and unmute all the lines at this time so that we can, number one, begin to read the first point in our 10-point plan and engage in our discussion. Okay? The UsLiftingUs 10-point appeal and plan for the new black economy. Current events and the general unrest of the times call for radical change. The following points provide practical and necessary steps for a new and positive existence for us today and for future generations. So our first point is, as black people, we take full responsibility of the economic destiny of our communities and nation. I want to read that again because that's essentially what this discussion, member orientation and training, is going to be about. As black people, we take full responsibility for the economic destiny of our community and nation.
Great. And just as an overview, this evening we'll start a 10-week series where we will take one of the points each night and milk it and go into it as deeply as we can. And after that 10 weeks, we'll start it over. And as the series go, we'll pick up more and more pointers, and the orientation will be strengthened as we go. But it's very important that every ULU member realizes that ULU is fairly unique in actually prescribing and doing this prescription in the light of day. In other words, out there and having it being scrutinized by our community, offering a very precise prescription, those 10 points. And I would say that those 10 points are the foundation for building not just an economy, but building a new society. But we focus on the economy. And, of course, the first point is that we take, that as black people, we take full responsibility for the economic destiny of our communities and nations. I guess, Brother DJ, the first thing is we need to be clear that we are speaking to our people. And we covered it a little bit earlier, but in our basic documents, our membership application, and in our operating agreement, we are clear that membership in ULU is reserved for persons of black African descent. As these are the persons in our group that's in need of the empowerment that we talk about. So that's first, and that's fundamental. And we can talk more in detail about that. And, of course, the second element of that first point, and it's so important, it's the only words that are underlined in the whole 10-point appeal.
Right.
And, take full responsibility. We may want to stop, DJ, and just deal with in more detail with that first part of us as black people before we take full responsibility. Or you can, you may want to suggest that we go ahead to that level.
Definitely, and what I would like to do in addition to that, Baba Hekima, is to put that to our listeners because at this point, I guess it may be natural for us to assume that everybody that's on the line at this point, or members. But I want to ask, since we've got everybody's line unmuted, what does it mean to take full responsibility? Since you're right, that is the only part of the 10-point appeal and plan that is highlighted. What do we think collectively is meant by take full responsibility? And that's a question for anybody. All lines are open, so feel free to jump in, and we definitely encourage it.
While the thoughts are being formulated, the old folk used to talk about the power of a made-up mind.
Mm-hmm.
And everything follows intent. If you don't have it as an objective, as an intent, then if it happens, it's an accident. And we don't want to depend on that. And so, for us to when we talk about fondly of Black Wall Street,
mm-hmm.
that was a time when that's what we intended to have happen. And we took full responsibility because we weren't going back on those plantations. We'd left them. And so it pretty much, in some cases, unencumbered, we built new communities. They thrived, they flourished, and they became examples of Black economic excellence. And so it's a testament to what happens when our intent is clear, when it's not muddied, it's not convoluted. When it's clear what our intent is, and of course responsibility, because as our name indicates, most of us understand that if it's to happen, it's going to be us. So I just start the conversation.
Okay. Anyone else with the follow-up?
Yeah. Greetings, family. This is Brother Chris calling from Macon, Georgia also.
Thank you.
When you speak about full responsibility, I think it's touching on something, expanding on more than just maybe economics per se. It's maybe touching on lines of more sovereignty in my mind. We're speaking about education, culture, control, maybe more military, politics, as well as economics playing a very big role also. But I think it kind of expands past the boundaries of just economics when we speak of full responsibility in my mind.
I definitely agree with that. Just to take that point, a little further and just add to it, what really resonates with me when I hear take full responsibility is accountability, right? That comes with being responsible and how we govern ourselves, not only as co-op members, but the types of businesses that we get involved in, and how do we shape the larger aspects of our community in ways that they may not even understand or be aware of. But those of us who have taken full responsibility really understand what's at stake, especially as it relates to future generations. And so we're not passive about that. We are proactive and aggressive about what that means and actively being involved in shaping an outcome and making it so by taking full responsibility. And like I say all the time, that's what adults do.
Ashe. Yeah, thank you for that sentiment, brother. We agree with you wholeheartedly. You can't separate economics from the other aspects of life fully. You can do it in an academic sense, but it really speaks to taking full responsibility for the safety and welfare of our people in every respect.
I agree 100%.
Yes.
100%. Anyone else?
Well, I guess I can add a little bit to this, Monisha, from Macon, Georgia. When I think about taking full responsibility, it definitely, our future depends on what we do now in the present. And we have to really think about where we want to be in the future and determine what is it going to take us doing now in order to get there. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Great point.
That's
So as black people, we take full responsibility for the economic destiny of our community and nation. And just to kind of give it a little bit more, support, this discussion is really designed as a form of a very important form of education, so that our members have the requisite information, so that they can, when they hand someone this 10-point healing plan, and prospective members, people in our community begin to ask questions, we are equipped with the information, with the talking points enough to be able to answer those questions soundly, and based on our level of enthusiasm and passion, convey a clear economic message that resonates, that connects with them. So if they never hear anything else about ULU, if they never go to the website, then this 10-point appealing plan, kind of codifies everything that we are about as an organization. It's extremely important for us. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of noise.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit back. You would help us if you would mute your phone if you are not.
Yeah, I just muted it.
Okay. You found it, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
It doesn't take long with this system.
That's great. Yeah. I would just say to give brothers and sisters a sense of what's going on, there are brothers and sisters who are printing out 10, 15, 20, 50 copies of the 10-point appeal. And, of course, our website is set up so that first page, the 10-point appeal and plan, if you put your cursor over it and click it once, or you click the line that above it, it turns into a PDF, and you can print out crisp copies from your printer, or you can download it to a thumb drive, go to a copy center, and print it out. And as we speak, there are brothers and sisters who, when they travel around the country and around the world, are passing this 10-point appeal and plan to others. And in certain circumstances, I know at least of one where they have a person is creating stacks for dignitaries as they travel about strategically in the world. And so it won't be long before we'll get feedback of a person who would pass the 10-point appeal and plan to a person, and the person will say, well, hold up, and go into their portfolio and say, I just got this one, that same copy, that same plan from a brother or sister in San Francisco, or brother and sister in South Africa, or in Buenos Aires, or wherever. So the idea is that all of us in tandem begin to pass copies of the 10-point appeal and plan to people as we move about in life. I mean, some of it will fall on deaf ears, but some of it will be planted in fertile soil, and you never know where it will go. So we want to encourage everyone to involve yourself in the exercise of printing out the 10 points and sharing it with people. Of course, most of you are sophisticated enough so you know how to share it electronically, but sometimes a good old 11.5 by 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper works well also.
Great point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, that number 1 point sets up the whole 10 points. And I think our sister Macon talked about it, and brother did too, in terms of building for the future. So we say take full responsibility for the economic destiny of our communities and nations. And so ULU puts in place a process that we will build on for many, many years. I would dare say that what ULU looks like now, it won't look like in 10 years. We'll tighten it up, we'll strengthen it, and there'll be things that we know there's a better way of doing it. And because it's a collective and we believe in collective wisdom, we will do that and tighten it up. But our economic destiny starts now. I mean, you don't wait to sometime in the future to ensure your destiny. We build it now. Everything is in the now. And so that is definitely a part not only of our thinking, but the work that we do day to day to build the systems, to build the grids, to build the foundation for not only a new economy, but a new society. And hopefully we contribute with others for a new reality on the planet. I mean, obviously, for the foreseeable future, we're going to be on the planet with other people. And we want a wholesome environment for all of us who occupy spaceship Earth. And but our backyard is our backyard. And this is our turf. And we want to take full advantage and ultimately be the supreme authority when it comes to what we would consider our community, our world, that territory that we define as the black community and or black nations.
Great point. Anyone with a follow-up to any parts of the discussions that we've covered so far? Again,
yes.
All lines open. Go ahead.
Yes. I'd like to say on the taking full responsibility for the economics that as we're building this whole process, we've got to take the full responsibility in everything that's going to set up the economics, the marketplace, including taking responsibility for being on the call and listening, sitting still, and not making background noise, and appreciating our leaders and the leadership and the information and the clarity that you're bringing forth, and taking full responsibility to get on the call. And just like in the first hour, as I'm listening and taking notes, and I'm just saying, this is, it's something wrong in somebody's mind if they thought that it was boring, to hear you express thoughts and answer questions, but it's really very informative to help us and just help us all to have greater clarity of what we must do, because if we don't, we'll forever be at the mercy of others, as the word says. And I thank you so much, and all of the leaders, the board members, you are doing such a wonderful job, and you're very, very good at expressing your thoughts. And so it's just like when the word have been saying, be on the call and ask the hard questions. You are ready, and it's rare that there's questions that you couldn't come up with some answers to, because you have done your homework so very, very well, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Thurman. Definitely.
Yeah. And you strengthen us, brother, and I hope you know that. And others do. Yeah.
We strengthen each other. You all are helping nurture, bringing good heart medicine, and we got to give it back to each other all the time because we need it.
Yeah, there you go. and family. Brother Thurman is out of Richmond, Virginia, and we probably have more ULU members in Richmond than any other city, maybe except New York and Atlanta. Well, obviously most of our members are in Atlanta, and then maybe second New York and then Richmond. So Richmond, and as we study Richmond, I'm learning more and more about that rich history in your city, and there's some beautiful things that are going to come out of Richmond. Of course, that have already come out of Richmond, but some more will come as a result of what we're doing now. So thank you, Brother Thurman.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else would like to jump in? I don't know if the people on the line are familiar with this internet YouTube channel called Russia Today. They have a program on there called Crosstalk, where they usually line up 4 people, and they just, it's not even a debate. It's like a free-for-all discussion around a certain topic, and everybody jumps in when somebody says something and another person may have a follow-up. They just kind of jump in and begin to add on or even disagree with something that may have been said. I understand the training and orientation nature of the call, but we definitely encourage our members, if there is anything that you think may prevent you from clearly articulating the ULU message, especially as it relates to the 10-point plan and appeal, now is the time for us to discuss it and open it up. We have obviously many different people on the call, so there may be different perspectives that are good. The board does not know everything, and we can't think of everything, so we rely on our members oftentimes to help us undergird this process and strengthen it. So definitely understand that, and again, we encourage you to be involved. As black people, we take, again, full responsibility for the economic destiny of our communities and nations. Destiny is a very important word, too, Baba Hakeem, and we can't emphasize that enough, especially as it relates to the next generation. Destiny.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think kind of double back. I think one of the questions you asked earlier about creativity and a people's creativity not being stemmed. What are the possibilities when a people have full control or to express themselves creatively in terms of building? When we came off the plantations after emancipation and we scattered and we began to create the mutual aid societies and began to build towns, we built hundreds of new cities, new towns, new communities, and many of them rose to high heights, especially when you consider the times. And but when this whole the psychological, the spiritual, the mental condition of you being in a situation where you knew that if you were going to survive, it was going to be totally up to you. And in some cases, you were in the wilderness. You were unencumbered by some forces. I mean, there were certainly certain forces that you knew were out and about and maybe negative and against you. But the total burst of total creativity in terms of building and sustaining that building over time, and you created those cities. That was a time in our recent history when we were not consumed about what the plantation bosses would allow us to do or wanted us to do, and we weren't consumed about maneuvering for greater benefits, for shorter work hours, for higher wages. We were in a mode where the earth, our labor, our genius, and our creativity, there were no bounds. Again, there were rare exceptions. And so I would dare say, and I say a lot of times, Brother DJ, that anything that we perceive, or most of what we perceive as a hindrance to our development and our growth and development, 90% of it, I would suggest, is in our mind. It's not in the real world. And so if we don't take full responsibility and assume that posture, then we're robbing ourselves and we're robbing future generations. We're committing a crime, in essence. And so it's the person, it's the people who arrive at that point where they are prepared to make history as opposed to be a victim of history, who succeed and who, in fact, the annals of history are written about them. The people who were totally victims are rarely written about except as a sorry tale. So I'll just say that that particular clause, and as we revisit it 10 weeks from now, and as we think about it more, we'll put more meat on the bone. But that's where everything starts, with that intent, with that intense determination to be masters. And I say very often, Brother DJ, you hear me say it over and over again, that I don't know of a healthy person on the planet that does not want to be in charge of its own affairs. I mean, I'm sure that there's some people who don't, but I would say that they're not healthy. And so for us in ULU and those around us, we want to have a healthy dose of what our brother talked about there in Macon, of this notion of having supreme authority or sovereignty over our affairs, and then to build the structures, procedures, processes that make that happen, and that we defend our rights and we defend those institutions that we build, and we sustain them into the future so that our children not only are the beneficiaries of the profits or the gravy, so to speak, but they also inherit the institutions, the policies, the ways, the mechanisms of power. And we don't build that new reality unless we're in a position to take full responsibility and assume authority as it relates to a group, a self-defined a group of persons on this planet.
Great point.
I've got a quick question, Baba Kimo. This is Brother Chris one more time.
Beautiful.
I think if we look at our current condition, I think we can see the effects of not taking full responsibility of our destiny. I've got a question in more details as far as individuals. Would you consider, let me rephrase it, would an example of not taking full responsibility for individuals be maybe working a 9-to-5 job with no intention of owning something for yourself, with no intention of creating an opportunity for yourself or your family, or maybe going to university and coming out and getting a degree and working outside of your community and not doing something for your community?
I think I would agree with you. I know I would agree with you. And because for a few of us who are in that situation, it may be comfortable from a creature comfort position. But I'm sure I'm thinking that very rarely is it rewarding from a creativity standpoint. In many cases, in most cases, even if you're well paid, you're a well-paid servant, a well-paid boy. And so I think that is a result of not taking full responsibility. I don't want to minimize the brother, sister who has thought through other things and maybe have tried it and they didn't succeed, but they're still there. But at least we ought to be looking at alternatives. And
right.
So I think you're correct.
Great question. Great comment, brother.
Yeah.
I got. Can I comment on what the brother had brought a thought up, and that is, if when you mention the folks on the job and they would be content with that in so many words, it's more difficult for our people to take full responsibility when they don't have clarity of and we've got so much confusion, including lies in their head. And it would be so much easier to take full responsibility. So it brought to my mind that we have a responsibility to try in various ways to reawaken the minds and reawaken the minds where they want to really have clarity. And so there's just a lot to this taking full responsibility. And before, a few minutes ago, it just came to me that taking full responsibility means that we got to be ready to get busy to do the work. And so if the UsLiftingUs marketplace was going to be framed up in wood, wooden beams and whatever, we've got to take the responsibility that if need be, that ULU members would be out there doing the work to build the structures. But we can't have that done very efficiently and maximize the number of people would participate if we're not well spiritually, mentally, and physically. And so that brings to my mind that there's 4 major areas that we need to be about strengthening ourselves regular, and that is spiritually, mentally, physically, and nutritionally. And when we can bring that into that subject of taking full responsibility, that's one of those 4 areas are a necessity for our survival and for our destiny.
All right. Jump in.
I thought I heard Sister Shay's voice.
You did.
Okay.
You did.
Oh, she's okay. She's here. Greetings, Shay.
Greetings, everyone. Yeah, and Brother Thurman he just brought a point. Well, a couple of the comments that have been made, it just brings my mind to the fact that, yes, it's our responsibility, but it's also an opportunity. And I know we're living in a very, very interesting time, and it's really to our advantage to take the opportunity to do what it is that we're talking about and build ULU. And I like to speak in the affirmative because just as Brother Thurman spoke, if ULU members need be out there building the market and exchange, we should do that, right? Well, that's really what we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. Even though we've not gotten to the point of a brick and mortar or wood frame or what have you, the material market and exchange, but that's exactly what we're doing now. And I think the opportunity is so rich. Many people who are on their jobs, they're on a daily grind, even in their own business, on a daily grind, paying bills, on a daily grind, paying bills and just doing that. So many people are searching for their passion and for their purpose. And ULU is just that thing in my mind, because it definitely did it for me. It's just that thing that allowed me to plug in and be more of who I am. So I really encourage us to express also to the people that we're talking to what it can do for you on an individual basis. As it strengthens us, we strengthen the community together. And again, so it's this opportunity, it's this exciting opportunity to take the reins right now, and really make history. It's not every year, it's not, every day that individuals are hearing about the opportunity to really, really be a difference, not just make a difference, but be the difference. And so I encourage us to think in terms of an opportunity, a very unique opportunity.
a very needed opportunity too.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So it answers so many things on so many different levels, and the person that we're thinking about talking to, we think, oh, okay, well, they might not get it on this level. Don't shortchange yourself. Don't shortchange them. Don't shortchange the process. You never know what part or what aspect of ULU will actually hit their heart, their mind, their spirit. And so we just got to be in the business of sharing this information and sharing the opportunity.
I really appreciate you bringing that, expressing it that way in terms of an opportunity. We had a discussion today with a brother in New York, a new member, just joined today, and he had expressed a desire to be in business for himself. And when we talked a little while, it wasn't so much that he wanted to be in business for himself. He wanted a wholesome environment where he could express himself, he could, exercise his creativity. And when we discussed it, I think he came to appreciate that he may prefer to be a worker owner in an ULU co-op with a collective and secure in that environment as opposed to being out as a rugged individual business owner with the grind that normally that is associated with. And so, yes, it is. I agree with you. It's an opportunity, a great opportunity.
And to further that point, as far as being in charge of your day-to-day as a worker owner, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that we've seen a time in recent history, maybe even never, in this country where democracy or a democratic way of working has been introduced in our workplace. We as adults spend most of our time working, whether it's our own business or on the job. Several of us are on the job, and we don't think about what an impact that makes on our family life, our mental health, just our day-to-day, if you really take away that whole employee, employer, boss, worker struggle, and you really flatten that all out. I mean, the creativity, we have no clue the type of things that we can produce when we take that whole push and pull away. And so, again, speaking to the opportunity, that's just one of the very tangible things that we can look at and say, wow, we really had an opportunity to change the tide like that and then lead the way for other ethnic groups as well. It's just a much better way to live life when you think about all the different, like I said, effects that job, that push and pull has on you.
Great point.
Yep, great point. Excellent point.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Greetings.
Hey, this is Eric from West Point.
Hey, we missed you lately, man. Good hearing your voice.
Oh, thanks. Yes. Just wanted to, first of all, ask you guys if by chance you got the invitation to attend the co-op roundtable from Nigel's group for tomorrow.
Yes.
We plan to be there.
Okay, I plan to be there too, representing West Georgia. And another thing that I just wanted to, I guess, comment and kind of question as well. I'm not sure how familiar you are, Baba Keem, or anybody else with what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi. We earlier in the first call, I think there was some talks about the politics and of course, and what role politics has played and what role do we expect politics to play going forward as we become more successful in this cooperative economics model. Well, Jackson is kind of like the model for cooperative economics, and it yielded a lot of potential until, of course, one of the champions of that effort, Chokwe Lumumba, died unexpectedly. But what I want to share is, for those of you all that may not be aware, Jackson, Mississippi is more than 80% black, and what is going on is the state legislator, the white boys at the Capitol, pretty much all Republicans. They are moving just like they do in other cities that become majority black. They are moving to take away the mother's milk of those cities' economies. They're seeking to take control of the airport and the water, and they did similar things in Detroit and things of that nature. So I say all that just to simply say, just to remind us that no matter where we go, or no matter how sincere our efforts are and how diligent our efforts are to build our own economy, we can't avoid the politics. But how do we contend with those forces going forward with this cooperative economic model? Because those forces are always going to be there. So how do you, Barbara Kima, feel that we contend with those forces to minimize their impact, to make sure that those forces don't derail this new Black Wall Street we're trying to build with cooperative economics?
Well, certainly Jackson, we would have hoped that the development was further along so that they could have defended themselves in a more substantial way. But the black infrastructure is weak and has been weak. And so I think in terms of defense and position ourselves in a stronger position going forward, we're going to have to look at the fundamentals of the economic structure in our neighborhoods and communities and be strong there, and such that, well, and of course in Jackson you say 80% of the population is black, but Jackson is also the state capital, and of course we know that there's still some legal and ethical implications in terms of Mayor Chokwe's death. We don't know the details of that because it certainly was not expected. But it may take years, 10, 15, 20 years of sustained development based on what we can grab a hold of before we're in a position to defend ourselves against those types of moves. And so I would say that we don't think in terms of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, but 25 years, 50 years of sustained development so that at the precinct level, at the neighborhood watch level or whatever, we're strong, and so that's what I would say, overall, and because that opportunity, of course, we had the same thing happen here in Atlanta, of course. I mean, the state has wanted to take over Hartsfield-Jackson Airport for many years, and so there's been a sustained struggle here to maintain control of that and the revenue from it, because it's the largest employer in the metropolitan area. And so I just think that sometimes we look at things superficially, and I've used an example I'll repeat it again. Some of our brothers and sisters here that we relate to on a personal level are from Guyana in South America. At one point, that nation was a black-run nation. And what happened is that the East Indians stayed in the weeds, so to speak, and cemented their position economically, and later then gained control of the politics. But they didn't, they stayed in the weeds many, many years. And now they have the whole country on lockdown because they control the economy. And I think sometimes prematurely we want to flex our political muscle, and we have to do it to defend ourselves. But when you look at it, we really do not have control economically at the base level.
Thanks.
Great. Yep. Great point. I couldn't have said it any better myself. You handed that one like a real politician, Baba Hakeem, and now I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Listen at you. That's a backhand slap.
No, it's not. I just know not to ask certain questions about politics. That's all. Yeah, but yeah, it was a good question though. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we're right at that at the top of the hour. Want to also give an opportunity for anyone else who may have had a question in relation to our first point. This is the first of 10, like Baba Hakima said, and it's been a great discussion. Definitely appreciate everyone adding on to the build, so to speak. It's always good when we hear, various perspectives shared around the same topic. So it always makes for a very enlightening and informative discussion. And Shay and I talk all the time about we have some of the best members of any organization on the planet, and this dialogue was a testament to that. So thank you. Shay, did you have anything to add before we call it a night? And again, I also want to give the members an opportunity to speak if they have any closing comments as well.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to just mention that we have some good time to fellowship, a good opportunity to fellowship and get together in May. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the Malcolm X Festival here in Atlanta, Georgia, but it is a beautiful time. That's the weekend of the 20th and 21st. Saturday is the 20th,
right. Mm-hmm.
And Sunday is the 21st. So we will be there strong, and we'll need some folks to be at the ULU booth so we can communicate with those at the park who are interested in ULU. But also, like I said, it's a fun time for us to get together and have some good conversation and some good laughs. Because, again, what we're building is an alternative, and we have to include all aspects of an alternative economy. It's not just about us putting those dollars in and having conversations, serious conversations. It's about getting together and learning one another and creating those relationships, those standing relationships. So just wanted to put that out there.
Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll send out a formal communication, because we are asking definitely members in the Atlanta area to come out, and then people travel from far and wide for this event, so we're not sure who will be here, but we just want to, put that on your calendar.
Also, for members, there's a new page on the website. From the home page on the right-hand side, on the header, there's a road sign, a yellow road sign. Click it, and you'll go to a new page. It's called Intersection. And please review the page and respond if you feel the need. You may see some gaps in what's offered there. What we have a listing of platforms that are empowerment platforms, education platforms around the country and around the world. And so hopefully it'll be self-evident when you go there what it's about, and utilize it and share it with others as you communicate with brothers and sisters.
All right. Anyone else with a question or comment in relation to our discussion tonight? It's been a beautiful dialogue.
Well, we'll see Brother Eric tomorrow evening, so looking forward to it.
Likewise.
Definitely. Go ahead and give us some closing remarks, Baba Hikima, before we sign off for the night.
Well, in keeping with the first point of our 10-point appeal and plan, let's and Shay's advice to us to look at this as an opportunity. If you're an adult and you have children and you have grandchildren or maybe even great-grandchildren, or maybe you don't have any children at this point, but you're looking forward to. And this is an opportunity, as Brother DJ often reminds us, to step up and become adults in the world, and adults as it relates to our concrete situation. And look at ULU as an opportunity to participate in building a new reality. And again, I repeat, there's nothing stopping us. There's really nothing credible on the planet that's stopping us, except our own, what you call FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubts. So I just close by saying, let's continue to build with enthusiasm and with joy, and build those relationships and cement them, and know that I'll say Les Brown often says, and I guess some of the youngsters might not even know who he is, but he has this saying. He says, since you can't get out of life alive, you might as well have a good time. So let us have a good ULU, good time, and let's build, and all the way to Kilimanjaro. Yes. And when we say Kilimanjaro, that point at which we serve no master other than ourselves and the Most High.
Yes.
Ashe.
Good word. Beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Well, with that said, family, we're going to be on again next week, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., and from 10 to 11 will be point 2 of our 10-point plan and appeal, and look forward to the dialogue continuing. Until then, be safe, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.